Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Focus on Health. I'm your host, Peggy Mello. Today's guests are Dean Hale and Terri Seeley from the television show Inside Addiction. Thanks and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dean, can we start with you? Can you talk about the prevalence of addiction in the United States and New York State?
Absolutely. It's estimated 23 million Americans suffer from addiction. New York State alone, it's estimated 2.2 million New Yorkers suffer from addiction. In 2007, 1.8 million Americans sought and received treatment. 17% of those people, just over 300,000 people that received treatment for substance abuse in 2007, which are the latest statistics, came from New York.
Wow. And that's from all over New York, not just
Not just
New York
Colonie.
City.
Yeah, not just New York City, absolutely.
Everywhere.
I mean, upstate, yeah.
Okay. And what types of addiction are there out there, and who does it affect?
I think people can become addicted to anything. I mean, alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, shopping, you name it. Too much of anything, like you always hear, too much of anything isn't good. As far as alcoholism, drug addiction, and gambling, personally and professionally as well, working in the field, it crosses all boundaries. I've seen police officers, doctors, lawyers, nurses. It's not just the homeless people, as so many people believe.
And it's not just the poor, it's everyone.
You have to have some money to maintain an addiction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now Terri, we are going to talk about your story today. Mm-hmm. Why don't you start from way back when and go forward?
My main addiction was alcohol. Honestly, I can remember drinking beer, tasting beer when I was probably about 5. It was just a family thing. Dad, opens a beer, here, have a sip, give the dog some, and, it was a family to do, and the dog loved beer. And but I can remember getting, buzzed probably as early as middle school, and my first, getting drunk and blackout was in 9th grade. And all throughout, and it was with liquor, not with beer too. So it was pretty rough. That was my first blackout, and all throughout high school, I drank fairly heavily, blackout drinking. And as I got older, I realized that was something that was in my family. So it wasn't something that just I experienced. It was in the blood there. It was in the genes. But all through college, I would drink. It got progressively worse when I went away to college, to the point where I was actually diagnosed an alcoholic. I went to AA, alcohol poisoning, going to the hospital. And I think it got significantly worse probably within the last, I'd say 5 years or so, probably after the loss of my grandmother, who I was very close with, and after a long-term relationship ended. Just severe, uncontrollable drinking, basically.
Were you able to work at the time?
I did work.
Carrying the job?
I worked. I was a full-time student. I was working on my PhD. I am still a full-time teacher, and I actually also, during the real bad time, I was actually an adjunct professor at SUNY Albany too, during all of that.
Now, did you ever drink during the day?
No. Well, not while I was working. No, never during my job, but during the day, if I was home or somewhere, absolutely.
Okay, but when you got to work the next morning, you think there was probably still alcohol in your system?
Well, since I probably left the bar about 3 hours before that, I would say probably yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, did anyone during that period of time try to get you to help or rehab or try to do an intervention?
Honestly, not many people knew, except my roommate who I shared a classroom with. My mom told me after the fact that it was getting to the point where she was going to do an intervention. My cousin's a professional interventionist, and she was actually considering calling him. But it got to the point where since I'm a teacher, I have summers off, I was going to check myself in somewhere during the summer, but I was so afraid that I would lose my job. I was so afraid that people would find out. I was so afraid of what people would think that I didn't do it. And, I had people here and there say, well, if you stop drinking or if you back down with drinking, I'll cut down with smoking, or...
Let's make a deal.
Yeah. But nothing real severe as far as, ultimatums or anything.
So you never saw consequences, basically?
No, nothing severe, no.
All right, and did you ever drive while intoxicated?
Yeah, quite a bit.
No accidents?
Yeah, actually, the last night I drank, I crashed my car, but I still, went about my business and went back out to another bar. I wasn't hurt, nobody else was hurt, but yeah, I would, towards the end too, I would drink while I was driving, have my alcohol in the cup holder and, drive down Central where there's cops all over the place and,
Would
drink.
it be identifiable as a bottle you were drinking from, or did you pour it into something?
No, it was like, if I was drinking beer that particular night, it would be a Michelob Light bottle or whatever. If I was drinking liquor, that would be in, like a Rubbermaid container or something. But the beer was identifiable, sure.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, and so do you consider the day of the car accident as
Yeah.
hitting bottom?
There was a lot that took place that happened, and I knew I was building up to it. I would keep telling myself, something's going to happen. I'm going to know when the bottom is here, so I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing until it happened, and I would know when it would happen. Just some of the things where I knew it was getting bad, and I've shared this with people, but during my planning periods off, while I was teaching during my periods off, I would literally go into another person's room because I shared a classroom. I would go into another room where there was nobody and squat in the corner and have my arm wrapped around the garbage can. I would teach classes and not to be graphic or anything, but I would teach classes trying not to vomit or go to the bathroom in my pants, and I'm sure I reeked of alcohol because I've smelled it on other people's breath, that I work with. But I think I knew, there were so many things that were taking place during that time. Like, I tried to sign off on the rights for my daughter. I mean, it was just messed up things that I would do. I was trying to lessen my responsibility so I could drink more. I actually went as far as going to an attorney to try to sign my rights off on my daughter. You kind of put it together after the fact. You don't realize the extent of it while you're going through it, but when you can look back and reflect things that you did. And
But did the attorney try to convince you to not do it, or did anyone try to convince you?
She convinced me not to do it, thank God. But I neglected my animals, and I didn't see that until after, until now, where I'm like, wow, I did neglect them. I had the police come to my house. I had animal control come to my house because my neighbors called on me. Not that I didn't like physically abuse them, but I wasn't there a lot. If I wasn't at home, or I'm sorry, if I wasn't at the bar or working, I don't know where I was. I was just wherever. I kind of just floated around and did my own thing, but it was getting to a point where people were starting to irritate me, especially my mother, because she, and my mother, I love my mother, she's my best friend, but she knew she knew to the extent. And I talked to her, when I come around to my anniversary every year, we talk about what was going on, and, you know, she would say to me, I loved you through all that, but I didn't like you. And
It's probably common.
yeah, and just she would call me when she knew I was out, and it irritated me beyond belief. But half the time I never remember talking to her until she reminded me the next day. But the last night, you know, I was physically assaulted. I mean, there were a drug deal in my driveway that I didn't know about at the time. But I mean, driving with guys with guns. I mean, all this stuff was going on and on and on and on. And I knew it was just getting significantly worse, because I would do this stuff and then I'd be teaching the next day at 7 in the morning, you know. And I just knew, I was just waiting and waiting. And the last night, it's not something I'd like to admit, but it's reality. I went out on 3 different dates in one night. And I actually had a boyfriend at the time, too. And I think I wanted to get caught because I went on a date to a place where he frequented it, if that's the right word. And one of his best friends was a bartender there.
Okay.
And so I
It was
think
almost a cry for help, but not
Exactly.
exactly.
yeah, it was. Yeah, and then, you know, I went on another date at the same bar, same night, and I can't say now. I'm ashamed looking back that I didn't respect myself at all to do some of the things I did. But it's reality, and especially I think for women, women are held, unfortunately, at different standards than men. It's okay for guys to like slap each other on the back and say, "Oh, you know, good for you," but the second a girl does anything or a female does anything, like what I'm speaking about, we're a totally different category of people than a man, obviously, but. You know, it was awful what I did, and I disrespected myself, and I disrespected a lot of people. And that night, you know, when I crashed my car, I went back out, and the next day, I actually had called Dean. I was on my way to work. I was so sick. I was in the same clothes that I had on the night before. I hadn't showered. There was a guy who had brought me back to my car at the bar in the morning. I got in my car on a Friday morning at the bar, went right to work, you know, with the same just oozing of alcohol, I'm sure. But I called him. I was just a mess. We were friends. We were just friends.
How did you meet, you and Dean?
Match.com.
Oh.
Shameless plug.
We
Okay.
were both active when we met. And believe it or not, I ended up kind of ending things with him because he was a drug addict.
See, I didn't even know that she caught on that I was a drug addict.
Yeah, and he worked in the bars, and, you know, I used to go hang out with him at the bars and where he
Right.
worked, and they put a new drinking policy in effect after I hung out with him at the bar where he worked. But anyway,
Well, you have to explain that. See, when I was active and I worked at a bar, and it's another reason, you know, addiction tries to make you, addiction fills something in that you're missing, you know, makes you feel good about yourself. You know, alcohol is often referred to as a liquid lubricant. People that normally wouldn't be able to socialize when they go out in the public, if they get out into a certain environment, they have a few drinks to relax, and they can, you know, it's a liquid lubricant. So when I was active, I had all kinds of friends. I worked in a bar. People would come in and literally, anybody that wanted anything would get it, you know, and that's when I think also Terri realized, because Terri was the first person that would come in and that I would get drinks for, and the management of the bar said, you know, all these women come in, you get all these women drinks, you get all these guys drinks, but Terri was the first person that really was costing the bar some money. And, I came back in the following week, and, all my friends would come in. I'd have, 20, 30 people that would come in. I'd get them drinks, and they would say, your friends have to start paying for at least half price because the friend you had last week really, went through like a bottle.
Yeah, and the thing is, I didn't really realize I had a problem, and then, like I said, I kind of cut communication with him because he was a drug addict. I didn't want to associate myself with those kind of people, and because I wasn't one of them.
Alcoholics are okay, but
Well, that just to go off what I was saying just for a second, the one thing that really bothers me a lot is I've had people say to me, I'll say I'm in recovery, and people will say, "Oh, from what? Crack, cocaine, alcohol? Oh, that's it. Thank God, that's all it is."
No. It's not the way it is.
People have died from a lot less than what I've done and what I've put my body through. And it's a big, huge misconception that, if you're addicted, one's worse or better than the other. It's not true.
Do you think that alcohol addiction is more of a silent addiction than drug addiction?
Gosh.
At least with drug addiction, you see more of somebody overdoses and somebody dies. But it's not as common to overdose from alcohol
most addicts
and
don't
die.
Most addicts don't overdose and die, though. Thousands of addicts die from complications from years of use,
or it's
suicide.
a secondary illness.
Yeah,
It's
very few.
liver failure.
Yeah,
or
very
is it
few
something
addicts
else?
die from an overdose. I think it's alcoholism is sociably acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't buy crack, you can't buy coke when you walk into stores.
Well, but if you're in a bar on Wednesday night, not a big deal.
Right, and I'm actually, I hate to say this just because of how, alcoholism and drug addiction is viewed, but I'm actually probably putting I could be putting myself at risk right now for my job, believe it or not, because if certain people found out that their child's teacher was an alcoholic, we're going to have some huge problems at the next Board of Education meeting, But I'm willing to take that risk to, educate people that it's all over the place. And, I've had people say, "So you mean to tell me you can never take a sip of wine again?" No, I can't. I'll die. I know that.
Yeah.
Just
All right.
like he said the last show.
So you were telling the story.
Yes.
So you drank, you were dropped off at the bar, you called Dean.
Yes, I called
What
Dean.
happened after that?
I don't think I've totally regained my correct thought process yet. It takes a long time, but, and I said, the second he heard my voice, he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, I want to go to a meeting. And he helped me he gave me the date or the time and the location for the first meeting. So I went into school and I did my substitute plans, and my principal looked at me, and she just looked at me and said, "Go home." So I went to the meeting, and that was my first meeting. I went on my own, and I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. Just a mess.
So that was your first Alcoholics Anonymous?
No, I had gone when I was in college, when I was diagnosed an alcoholic, but like people told me in college, everybody in college, if they were, asked these questions, everybody would be categorized as an alcoholic in college, so I believed them, but, the writing was on the wall,
Okay, so you went to a meeting. Did you ever go to rehab?
I didn't. I was too ashamed. No. And I was very fortunate because I didn't go to a detox. People can die from detoxing, because I can remember sitting at my desk in the afternoon while I was actively drinking, just shaking at my desk, No, I did it all on my own and through the help of other people, such as Dean. Dean was a lifesaver, he called me, and this is what addicts do for each other, people in recovery. This is how we help each other. He called me probably every couple hours that weekend just to make sure I was okay and to let me know that there was support there, and that's what we do. We spread it and spread it around to everybody and help. And he was helped by other people, and he was just helping me like people helped him.
But since then, I mean, at that point, it was a conscious decision. I'm not going to drink anymore. And then you haven't drank since then.
Not in 2 years. Not a drop.
Okay, so what do you feel that you have to avoid nowadays? What are triggers for alcoholics? And I want Dean to talk about triggers for addicts too, but talk about your triggers first.
Well, I mean, it could be little things as simple as the clinking of ice cubes in a glass. You know, like I mentioned to you at when we met the first time, I don't have many actual glasses in my house. Or, you know, you make a conscious decision to, I have like plastic cups.
Plastic cups.
And that's what I have to drink out of. Or even just the sound of taking because I used to drink even when I was in the shower, the sound of my glass hitting the tub, anything like that, even like nail polish remover. I had to get rid of all my nail polish remover and get little packets like, you know, you use once and throw away.
Did you think you would drink the nail polish remover, or is it just the
The
smell,
smell
of it?
of that, I mean, hand sanitizer,
Yeah.
that could be an issue. I mean, for me in early stages of recovery, not now, but I mean, I would literally drive down the road and sit there with my hand sanitizer and smell it. You know, I mean.
Yeah. But are there certain places that you avoid?
Oh, absolutely.
You don't go to bars at all.
Well, I made the mistake of going once to get him chicken wings because it was a really bad snowstorm, and there was a bar on the corner of where I lived, the neighborhood where I lived, and I would go to that bar because it was close to home, and I went and got chicken wings because everything else was closed. And when I went, I sat at the bar with him, and it was a bad mistake, but I ordered a Diet Pepsi, and they put a bottle of beer in front of me because that's what, you know, that's what I drank there all the time. And I can never go there again. There's certain places I can never go to again in my life. You know, one of the first things I did was get a new phone number on my cell phone because I can't associate.
You can't be around anyone that's drinking.
No.
But does that mean that if you're dating somebody that they really can't drink in front of you?
At this
ever?
point, I could never date somebody not in recovery, no.
Well,
I mean,
if she's dating somebody that's using, it's not me, so then we have another problem.
Yes. But I mean, there's things I avoid. Like the night I was supposed to, the day I stopped drinking, that night I was going to a teacher social, which I didn't end up going to, but I can't go to the socials anymore. You know, I mean, the lady I share a classroom with says, well, if you go and I don't drink, will it be okay? I said, I can't do it. I cannot put myself in that
Do
predicament.
you have nosy coworkers that say, "Why didn't you come last night,
In the
Terri?"
beginning, but I think it's starting to get out there because I do the school newspaper too now this year, and I put a column in there every edition dealing with drugs or alcohol or something. So between that and people see the show in Schenectady where we live, and I work with a lot of people who live in this area, and I'm sure they'll see this, so it'll be out there. Yeah.
Okay. So you definitely avoid bars. But how do you go to restaurants? Do you go to restaurants?
We make conscious decisions everywhere we go. What was that place we were talking about in the mall?
The melting pot.
The melting pot, yeah.
Everything's made with alcohol. I mean, we have to specifically request things that don't have alcohol.
Okay. So like a chicken marsala or a chicken piccata.
We cannot order
forget it.
anything made in
Can't have this.
any sort of liquor or anything. No, we don't get it. We have to make conscious decisions not to do that every day for the rest of our lives.
So do you feel that sometimes it's easier to just stay home?
Oh gosh, no. We eat out probably 5 out of 7 nights a week.
I can't remember the last time we ate at home.
I made meatloaf the other night. No, but
Okay,
I mean,
so-
it's an everyday thing. It's something we'll deal with for the rest of our lives.
But how do you pump your gas? I mean, there's
I think that,
signs all over the gas stations.
Well,
for beer.
he used to make a joke
for
about that a
everything.
lot.
Cigarettes.
Until that incident at the bar, when when they put that beer in front of me, when I ordered a Diet Pepsi and they're just used to giving me beer, he physically saw me shaking. I was physically shaking. That's how much it affected me, and I had to leave. And I think after he saw that, that's when he saw how much the alcohol affected me. And I said this to someone the other day. Don't think I didn't notice that stewards changed their beer coolers from the last, two to the front two. Oh, I notice. I'll notice it for the rest of my life. Or the brown glass bottles that root beer comes in. We did a lot of work with the Recovery Softball League this last summer, and the concession people would sell root beer in those glass root beer brown bottles.
Somebody's got to tell them.
And the first thing I saw
That's
when
a
I saw
mistake.
that was, wow.
Well, I also think that's so important because you always hear about the three things: people, places, and things. And again, there's no cookie cutter approach because what could be a trigger for Terri as an alcoholic may not be a trigger for another alcoholic. Same thing as a drug addict. She's read books. Literally just been reading books, and I physically had to throw books away. There's obviously movies. You turn on TV, you go to the movies. I mean, next time you're at the movies,
How do you go to the movies?
any movie you go see, I guarantee within the first 5 minutes you'll see at least 2 references to alcohol.
Oh.
But it can be anything. For example, as a recovering cocaine addict, I recently had a really bad toothache. I won't use Ambisol. Ever in my life, because Ambisol will numb your gums, which gives you the same effect of high-quality cocaine. But I'm very fortunate. You mentioned going into stores. I'm fortunate that, you don't go into stores and there's not a pile of cocaine on the counter. But very often there's, sugar next to coffee. And yeah, it takes 15 years or, however long that somebody's an addict or an alcoholic. They say you don't walk into the woods overnight. You're not going to walk out. You're always going to see that. For the longest time when I saw a 7 Series BMW, it was a trigger because one of my main suppliers drove a 7 Series blue BMW. Black Range Rovers. Whenever I saw a black Range Rover.
Or even when we were in the grocery store, the sugar bags, they're always on the bottom shelf. One of them was ripped open and it was pouring out of the bag onto the floor, the sugar. And I didn't even think twice about it, but where do you think his eyes zoomed right into?
Yeah.
It's,
And if we're fortunate where we understand that in one another, but if you're with somebody who's in recovery and you're not, there's a lot of stuff you have to learn about. I'm not saying it can't work, because it can, but...
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is, wouldn't it be better if whatever things people could be addicted to were harder to get? I mean, even alcohol and tobacco.
You got to look at the days of the, back when you couldn't have alcohol, period. You still got it. People made it. Whether you forbid it to the society or not, you're always going to get it. Always.
Now, what was the story with the coolers in Chicago?
Well, recently, Chicago is putting into legislation that they're no longer going to sell cold beer.
Cold beer.
It's going to be warm. That's going to put a real big damper on a couple of alcoholics in Chicago.
But it's true.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a joke, but it's true.
It's a very
you want it cold so you can just pop it in your car and drink in your car.
And it's going to reduce driving while intoxicated. It's going to make it harder for alcoholics.
And they did away with the 40 ounces also?
Yep, they did away. They're no longer going to sell 40 ounces, which are specifically, they're targeted towards alcoholics.
Minorities specifically.
Minorities, alcoholics. But
40s.
Again, going back to, talking about how easy it is in the advertisements. When you're putting cigarette ads at knee level, let's be honest. Who are we targeting? We're targeting kids. And alcohol, you walk into a store and there's signs that are, 3 foot by 4 foot that say, 24 pack, $3. Is that really necessary?
If there was a law that said there's no cigarette or tobacco ads or beer ads allowed in a convenience store, fine. They'll still carry the items.
Well, the thing is, you got to get the higher ups to agree with that, and they never will.
And from what I understand, the marketing techniques for the tobacco companies, they send coupons for free cigarettes to their high-risk groups.
They know who they're looking for.
They know who
who's
they
buying.
want to become addicted.
Flavored cigarettes. It's not a real big. It's not rocket science. I mean, it's obvious. It's just the fact of the matter is, certain people are making money off of other people's addictions, and people are dying. That's what it is.
You know, because of what we do and the field that we work closely with, we see people dying all the time. And, you know, I mean, we knew people who 4 or 5 people die within like a 2-week period. And the thing, I mean, we'll sit there with our jaws just dropping because it's shocking every time, even though we see it all the time. But people in general don't know that people are just dying. They're just dying. And people don't get it.
Until it's somebody you're related to.
Right. Now, can one of you talk about signs of addiction? And how do you recognize addiction, and what do you do when you think that there's addiction?
If someone's watching and they think that someone may be an addict, chances are, if the thought is in your head, chances are 9 times out of 10 you're probably right. It's such a secretive thing. You know, addicts and alcoholics will go to very many lengths to try to hide it, but truth be known, you can't hide it. The signs are obvious. People are late to work, fighting, picking arguments so they can go out at night, not paying bills.
Change in physical
appearance. Some are more obvious than others. For example, people that use crystal meth, you know, fortunate thing with people that are addicts to crystal meth, they can't physically hide it.
Because of their teeth?
Meth mouth. You also get people that do heroin, they itch, so you'll see people with scabs on their face. Can't hide that stuff. Alcoholics can hide their alcoholism. Cocaine, in crack, you see the typical extreme weight loss. You see the irritability. Obviously, if you get even further into someone's addiction, they'll smell. They'll have a specific smell. I mean, I remember for years that you sweat. You literally alcoholics. I've met alcoholics that literally alcohol is coming out of their pores. Same thing with cocaine. You sweat a smell. But the same thing, bills not being paid, fights, missing days from work, and it doesn't take long for it to progress. If it's a chronic progressive disease, it's going to start out small, but it's going to go quick.
So where can someone go for treatment?
First thing, they should probably reach out. Oasis is a great resource to call the New York State Oasis. Also, if someone like Terri has spoken, obviously has those physical symptoms of withdrawal, which comes along with alcohol and heroin, where they're physically shaking, they're sweating, you can die. It happens, and it's not an isolated incident. Yeah. People die from alcohol and heroin withdrawal all the time. Call 911 first and foremost. Get them into a medical facility. Get them into an ER. Get that brief intervention in an ER where they have referrals, where they can go to detox, or they can go to a 28-day. Yes, people, stop drinking without going to rehab. People stop smoking cold turkey. With any addiction, you could find people that can do it without it, but is it a chance that you want to take when the alternative is death? And that's the real deal, black and white. I mean, get people help. If you think someone has a problem, get people help. The most dangerous thing anyone can do if they suspect a loved one, a friend, a family member, a neighbor, coworker, your bus driver, whoever, the most dangerous thing to do with someone that has an addiction is ignore it. It's not going away.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Dean, can you talk about how you started the Inside Addiction television show?
Sure. Yep. Originally, I went on a local show to advertise some recovery jewelry that I had. And I was asked to speak with the director of a TV station, approached to do a show about addiction. I said, absolutely. Any way to get the word out, to educate people, to raise awareness and lower stigma. So we started taping. The first show I did, I was fortunate enough, Terry's cousin is Ken Seeley. He's an interventionist.
He's very well known.
He knows a couple of people. He's the interventionist from the A&E show Intervention.
Yeah.
He came up, taped the first show with me, and we just took it from there. I just wanted to get as many people involved as I could. I was a little nervous at first because I really wanted to focus on that addiction crosses all boundaries. I wanted to take every single profession that I could think of. Me and Terri made a poster, and it says addiction does not discriminate, and it has pictures of like every profession you could think of. And my goal is to find one person from every one of those professions that is in recovery, that's overcome their addiction one day at a time, and have them speak out, because those are the people that will get other people in those professions to come out. I recently interviewed an RN, a nurse.
Yeah.
And that's another whole population. 1 in 6 nurses and doctors, people in the medical field, suffer from addiction. You want to talk about fear of losing your job, to get the word out. That, we don't have to be ashamed that we're in recovery. We were never ashamed when we were active. I was never ashamed when I was putting guns at people's heads. Terri was never ashamed when she was driving drunk or going on 3 dates in one night. Why would we be ashamed that we're in recovery? It's no different than a cancer survivor. That's what this is. This is a disease.
Yeah.
And we should be proud. We should, wear it as a badge of honor. And our story is someone else's hope.
And your TV show, Inside Addiction, is broadcasted on the local government channel in the town of Colonie, this channel, Channel 17. Where else can people watch the show?
They can watch it on YouTube at www.youtube.com/InsideAddiction. And it also airs once a month on the MyTV network across this area and 2 other states.
Oh, okay. All right. Websites and telephone numbers. How does a person contact Oasis?
They can contact Oasis at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. I believe that's a 24-hour day, 7 days a week. It doesn't matter if it's, Thanksgiving, Christmas, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the morning. If you need help, there's help. Get it, because you may not make it till 3 o'clock in the afternoon if it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
So Oasis will refer people to treatment.
Absolutely.
And they'll just talk to them on the phone?
Yeah, and obviously there's many 12-step programs in the area. There's Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Narcotics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous has a 24-hour day, 7-day a week, 365 days a year hotline. You call that number anytime, day or night, a person is gonna answer that phone,
okay.
A person.
Okay, and your show has a website. Do you want to mention that?
Yep, it's InsideAddiction.org.
Okay, and then the YouTube one.
YouTube.com/InsideAddiction.
Okay. All right, Dean and Terri, thank you so much. You guys have shared so many personal, private stories of yours, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thanks a
having
lot.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next time on Focus on Health.